Welcome to World Building. I'm Paul Chadeisson and I'm a concept artist for the film and video game industry with a focus on environments. Over the past 9 years, I've worked with some of the largest studios in the world on projects such as Cyberpunk 2077, Final Fantasy XV, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, Blade Runner Blackout 2022 and many more. My goal as your instructor is to show you the technique required to create worlds for your stories and characters to inhabit. We will explore 2D and 3D tools such as sketching, digital painting, photobashing in Photoshop, and sculpting and rendering using 3D Coat and Octane Render. During the planning phase, I show you how to work from a client brief. We then look at references, sketch initial thumbnails, and develop a few directions using our painting and photobashing skills. Using 3D Coat, we'll build our final design in 3D before moving to Octane, where we will render our final images. Finally, back in Photoshop, we'll refine our 3D renderings and turn them into unique and beautiful compositions. Regardless of your skill level, this pipeline will help you to build a solid foundation, both technically and creatively, in world building. Begin your journey at lorscan.com.
Boom. Here we are. We are live, my brother. How's it going? How is everyone
I'm
feeling
fine,
today?
you?
I'm great. I hope you're great too. I hope everyone who is joining us live is great as well. We have a very special guest. Now, let me not butcher your name because I'm pretty bad at that. Paul Chadeisson. Is that correct? Yay! Hell yeah, I did it.
90% perfect.
90%. All right, I'll work on that last 10% to make it better.
You just missed the French accent.
You know what I need to do is hang out with more French people. You know, like maybe start to hang out more with David Levy or no, David actually moved out from LA, but Matthias Verhasselt is not far from where I live, so so maybe that. How's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm good. It's quite exciting to release this course now, but because it's funny because when you asked me to do this course, it was like months ago, and I couldn't imagine it would take like I think it was like 6 months ago maybe. Mm-hmm. So yeah, time fly, and it take a lot of time to prepare it, think about what you will do, and it was a super exciting experience.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you know, most of the people that been following us, some of you guys already know, but sometimes you know, people join in and they don't realize how much work we're putting into the courses. Like that's one of the things that when we started a company, when we started Learn Squared, we want to make sure that we're gonna have the best material out there, you know. So we always put like a lot of work into upcoming courses, you know, editing, making sure that everything is, you know, nice and tightly knit. So it can be a lengthy process, especially considering, you know, some of you guys, some of the instructors we have, including yourself, you guys are fucking busy, dude. It's like, yeah, I got this work, this and that, you know, and just like the days go by, but you know, we actually made it happen. I'm super excited about it. I went over the course over last week, and I could not believe how much material is there. It's one of those really packed ones, guys. It really is. But before we go into details about the course itself, let's maybe talk about you, Paul. Like, just maybe introduce yourself. I 100% know that a lot of people that are joining the stream already know who you are, but there's always going to be a lost soul that joins in. Is like, who is this guy? I want to know. And so, yeah, let's talk about who you are and you know, get people excited.
Yeah, so I'm Paul Chadeisson. I'm a French artist. I've been doing some freelance for maybe 3 years now, almost. Mm-hmm. Before I created my video game company with 3 friends, and we released 2 games, Stravector and Stravector EX. And I was kind of missing to do art, you know, because when you have your own company, you know, you just I don't know how is it in US, but in France it takes so much time to do the paperwork, everything. So I was more doing paperwork and all those kind of stuff instead of creating art.
Mm.
And that's why getting back to freelance makes a lot of sense to me, because I don't do paperwork anymore. I just do art, and that's I prefer that situation by far.
Yeah, it's easier. That's easier. I remember actually, I remember seeing your work for the first time was either Siegen Forums or conceptart.org. I can't remember exactly where that was. Were you at Siegen Forums when it all started?
Yes, I wasn't very. I think I discovered conceptart.org too late, but I was on Sijun, yeah, for sure. I don't remember when I came in, but yeah. But Craig Mullins wasn't post thing anymore, so
Yeah,
I've missed.
okay. You missed the golden era of those
Yeah, but
forums.
I could scroll through the thousand of pages of Craig Mullins stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been starting. I think I did my first game studio in 2009. I think I started doing. I think 3 years before. Some friend of mine just bring me into a comic book store, and they were kind of forcing me to go there because I didn't want to go. And it was a comic book store with a lot of art book. I didn't knew about it, and I am pretty sure, like a lot of people, I've just seen the one of the Star Wars art book. It was the episode 3, and I was discovering the Ryan Church stuff, and I was what is that? What is that? And I just bought it instantly, and I just tried to paint the same day, at night with my mouse, trying to understand everything. And yeah, it was yeah. So I started like 12, 13 years ago, I think.
Yeah, it's a long time, man. It's a long time. Yeah, I've been in the industry just a little longer than you. I think I started at the same time as Matthias Verhassel, which I already mentioned, and actually I discovered your work through him, because he's been always sharing your work. Anytime he posted
Really?
something, yeah, I saw like him sharing your work. I was like, wow, this guy is really good. And then like one day, like right after, I think it was right after you decided to go back to concept art, from running the business, and you started, creating concept art again. I was like, what the hell happened? Like, what kind of like miracle drugs you started taking? Because like your work just exponentially, it's almost like exploded in terms of quality. But I remember also seeing the work you've done for Strike Vector, your video game, and even back then you started this very interesting style of architectural design with like a long lens and everything. And then like right after you've been posting those images from Strike Vector, there was just so many people trying to do the same thing. When you go on like ArtStation, and it's just like so apparent to see the trend. So you were like one of those. There's not that many artists that can do that have like such a powerful work that speaks to people, that they just want to try the same sort of style. But yeah, it's like immediately after you released some work from the Strike Vector, I saw like, oh yeah, like that's going to be something people which will catch on and start copying, like not copying, but at least studying, so it was really interesting to see. Yeah, it's been, dude, 12 years. Like, time is flying, right?
Yeah.
Time is flying. It's
I,
insane.
I I still think sometimes like I'm kind of still beginning in the industry, but I just realized like no, 10 years it's not beginning. That's kind of scary, but that was just beginning is super exciting. I have so many good memories about it. It's you just but I think it's good to kind of keep that approach, all the time. And I think that's a good period we have now, that we have so many tutorials, so many courses online, and that can really help you to still be kind of open, and you have so many things to discover all the time, and to keep this situation of just learn and
Yeah.
keep discovering things, yeah. But to come back to Strive Vector, I think that's a fun thing that you don't necessarily do when you when I wasn't doing that when I was a concept artist, but when you create your company and you need to decide, okay, what kind of game we are going to do, and that's what I talk in the intro of my course. Is I introduce Strive Vector and how we created the art direction. And it was funny because we instantly have a different approach of how to design our world, but just with a keyword, because when you do an illustration, or how I was doing, and sometimes how I still do it as an illustrator, I just start painting, and what's come will became my painting.
Mm-hmm.
But when you create a company, there is kind of a goal. For example, we were an indie developer, and we wanted to do a flying game, and there is so many space game out there, and that there was a lot of space game when I think it was 6 years ago already, and we had to be kind of different to be recognizable by people, especially when you don't have like any money to bring into marketing or everything like anything like that. So you have to find something to be kind of different. So just from the start, we had this kind of global approach to just try to do something different compared to everything we have around. Just trying,
Yeah.
And that's something I wanted to share in this course, because it's a lot about that.
Yeah, you go over a lot of details when it comes to like your experiences with that, and I think it's like a really great insight for people who are trying to, not only just like learn in terms of like how you work and how to create those beautiful images, but also get like an insight on how actually think about imagery to make it look good and make it look like it makes sense in terms of like the design and everything. Like you go into very extensive details explaining that stuff. Like one of the things I've mentioned quite a few times, and for some of you guys who've been following Learn Squared, you already know a lot of the material that we release, we always want to try to give as much insight into whether it's a concept art, motion design, but generally the topic of the course. So it's not like when you're buying a class, it's not just a class about you do this, you do that, you go from A to B, and then that's the result, right? Like we always want to give that a little insight, a little bit of that information that oftentimes missing when you just watch like a tutorial video. Like if you just watch a regular tutorial video, it's just like, okay, I know how to use Photoshop now, or I know how to render with V-Ray, but that's about it. Like that's just the tool part, and there's always that other layer, which is the creative layer, the design sense, all of those things that take a lot of time to learn. And when you have an insight from a professional that's been, it's basically your 12 years of experience packed into the words that you say and explain how you think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. Just a quick mention, guys, like whoever's like, if you're watching it right now, the course is already available. So anytime you want to like, oh yeah, I'm down, then you can go on www.learnsquare.com and the course is right here. Click it and you can purchase it now. Yeah, okay, so let's go over the course itself and talk about what is, like what kind of goals you have for the students, and what is the purpose, the purpose exactly behind the course itself.
Hey, yeah, you're here.
Yeah,
So
I'm here.
yeah, so I made this course to because I wanted to. I think that's something that I was kind of breaking down my workflow and how to create some universe, because I was just creating one universe, which was my game Strive Vector, and I wanted to break down how it was working, how I was doing this, because I didn't really was really conscious about that, and I wanted to simplify it so you can just create some words, some universe in a very simple way, while you will as well discover some standard tool like are very used now in the industry, like Photoshop, and so I will introduce the basic of few software like Photoshop and 3D software like 3D Coat and Octane Render, but also the main goal is to create your universe, because I think that's really bring some how can we say that, some bridge between every picture you will create, and that always brings some idea. When you do a picture, that bring you some idea, and then you do another one. But yeah, that's how I could describe it quite simply.
Yeah, I've noticed when I was watching the course is, outside of, and I mentioned this already, outside of how packed it is, that like you literally go over all the details when it comes to tools, your thinking process. Like even when you just watch the first few chapters of the course, you go in so much detail when it comes to like your sort of thinking process, how you gather your thoughts, how you think about reference, like all of those things. And and you explain it in the details, to basically like prepare everyone for a whole journey, right? And to me, it almost seems that even if you don't have any experiences with any of the tools that are mentioned in the course, and you're using, as far as I remember, you're using 3D Code, Octane, and Photoshop mostly, right?
Yeah, but 3D Coat is a. It's funny because I call it the 3D Photoshop, because it's a super easy interface, and you can almost feel like it almost look like Photoshop with you got the tool on the left, you got the layer on the right. It's pretty recognizable, but yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'm leading towards is that even if you look at this, and we have this question many times, and I'm thinking about it oftentimes as well. It's like, if I'm a person that, if I would be interested in doing art, right? But the first thing you see is like this beautiful image. I think for a lot of people that don't have expertise, or do not have experience within the industry, it all feels like magic, right? When you go to see the movies and you see all the VFX on the screen, it's like, oh, it's all magical, and it's like, it's so real, it's amazing, the explosions, this and that, it all looks great. And once you've been in the industry and worked on films or video games, and you know how things are done, like your perception is completely different. It's, oh, this is what they did. Oh, this is the software they use. It's like you're breaking down every shot. But the idea is like, it all can feel like it's very sort of like, wow, this image is amazing. I don't think I'll be able to do that myself. And I think the counter to that would be, with your course specifically, and with a lot of courses we do, but with yours specifically, like you go over every single detail of creation. So even if you're a person that, hey, I want to learn this, but I don't really have an experience with any of that, like even if you just follow the course to the teeth, you will be able to create like really good images, like, or at least learn the process. And there's literally no part missing. There's like everything you go over is like, okay, yeah, I completely understand how to make those things now. There's certain things like especially foundation, right? Like perspective and all of those things that you might want to practice. But that's pretty given. Like if you're interested in being an artist, you kind of want to go over foundation yourself. Hey, like what's perspective? What's this? What's that? Like how colors work? Like all of those things you should learn. But yeah, you go over a lot of details when it comes to the course. So what do you think? If we would break it down into let's say a person that is just starting as an artist and want to learn it, to a person that is more experienced and maybe an industry veteran? Like, what do you think would be, like, in a single word or in single sentence, like the outcome that you would be expecting from the students to have?
What do you mean by I
So,
don't
like,
understand
imagine if there's someone who's just starting as an artist and is taking your course. What do you think they will learn at the end of the day, and versus maybe someone
ah
who's like more experienced? You know?
but I will just introduce because I've introduced the very basic of any tool. So
Mm-hmm.
for example, with Photoshop, I've just you can quite quickly learn the basic of Photoshop, and then we can move to very sketchy approach to just design your universe. And just for the we have the world builder. It's the tool I've been preparing for because it's not necessarily easy to to design and decide what I'm going to do as a universe.
Yeah.
So I've just prepared that tool that just because you just have basically some different column with settings, with period, any architecture reference, and you just have to combine everything together to make it the most simple as possible. So you don't have because when it can be kind of scary to just what I'm going to do. Is it going to be a good idea or anything like that? But when you just put everything on the table and you just have to connect some box together,
Mm-hmm.
I just do the job for you, and it's pretty simple. And then we can just go through the process of, okay, let's do some very quick sketch just to see how those ideas could be combined together. And so I've been trying to make it very simple for the people who want to just learn at the same time the basic of painting or concept art.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think it could be as well very interesting for more advanced people, because I'm also showing how I use the tool for bringing the picture to a very finished stage, and also how I combine idea together to make something that can be kind of fun or different,
Yeah.
because that's something I realized. But the most you combine things together, and the most you will have something quite new, instead of just taking, for example, you want to do an environment and you just take like Indian architecture,
Mm-hmm.
and if you just keep that, it's not easy to just create something new that already exists, especially if you just use some references from everything that already exists. But if you combine this Indian architecture with, like, let's say, some industrial and pipeline, and and just, okay, that's what could it look like, because there is no reference about it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, you go over that really well, and so one of the things I remember, like, way back when, there were those challenges on whether it was Cgen, I think on Cgen, and then concept art, where people just like, hey, like, bash two topics, like random words together, and let's create concept art. It's like one of the things I think a lot of us have is, like, you sit down in front of a computer, and then, like, what am I gonna paint? Especially when it comes to, like, personal work, right? Like, there's always this question, what am I gonna paint? Like, a lot of us have, like, ideas, like, hey, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do my Showtime images, or I'll work on, like, some fantasy images. There's always ideas coming in, but oftentimes, like, hey, like, I have, like, literally no ideas, but I really want to paint. Like, what am I gonna do? So this tool is, like, really great. It's like a really good breakdown, how you can combine things together to make, like, interesting topic for the painting, or even just, like, for the as you said, world building, right? And then you can follow that structure to actually make your own world, your own tool, almost like a list, like, hey, like, let's put categories together and let's do it this way. So cool. All right, I think the next thing we should talk about is going more in depth about the lessons themselves, and just briefly talking about lesson by lesson, like what students can expect when it comes to that. Maybe we could start with like the lesson one.
Okay, so lesson one, I will before starting, I wanted to talk about my game experience, talking about my game, and I think I think it was a good intro to just show because we did a lot of mistake. Because when we launched our game, I mean when we started doing it, we were just like we just have like 2 or 3 years of experience, and we didn't knew about how to make an art direction and how could we decide it. And I think it was interesting to just show that before starting, just to show what mistake you can do, what good things that can happen by doing multiple picture, and how we came to a universe that kind of work. After we did a lot of tests, but I think it was interesting to see like it wasn't like it's just happening, with 1 or 2 picture. It took us a lot of time because we didn't knew how to make it happen, and then that's how then I moved to the World Builder tool, which is the kind of the lesson I got from creating the art direction of my game, which is combining few ideas together. It should work. There's a lot of chance it worked, because it took me like a year to understand just that, the fact of combining few ideas quite different, or maybe not too far, but just to give you some a good line to start from. So then we will just go through this tool, and everybody will be able to decide which kind of inspiration or architecture or anything they want to bring together. And then I'll introduce some sketching techniques, so you can very quickly experiment how to mix and balance every settings or every keyword you would have selected. And yes, it's the lesson one is more like experimenting, and I think it's the real moment where you can really play and try different things. And I think it's a good moment to experiment a lot of maybe different universe or what could create your interest.
Cool. Yeah, and I watched it. I rewatched it last night, and yeah, like it was really interesting to hear, your story about, Strike Vector, and really just like how, like the lessons you took from the whole development process, and now you're putting it into the lesson itself, so people can actually avoid making the same mistakes. It was really cool. Okay, let's go over like maybe the lesson 2 now, and we can just roll through all of them actually as we're at it, so just like lesson by lesson. So in lesson 2, I'm guessing it's more now from going from black and white to actually photo bashing and painting processes, right?
Yeah, it was because the first lesson is about experimenting and sketching, and in lesson 2 we use all the sketch we will have done to push them to more finished picture. As you said, I introduce photo bashing, so I don't use without using 3D. So how you combine a photo together, how you create a mood from nothing, and that's it. And I also show how you can use a sketch, which is black and white in the first lesson I introduced, and how you can bring it into a more finished things. And I really like this technique because it's a very simple approach, because when you do photo bashing or painting, you combine everything together, like lighting, color, texture, everything. And the good thing with this technique is it's more a breakdown process, which you can really focus on every stage of your picture. So with the black and white sketch, you will just start playing with shape, lighting, and volume, and that's it. You don't have to take care about color or any any texture, any mood. And then when you move to listen to, you will have already solved every design and uh, lighting and volume problem. So you can really focus more then into what texture you will bring into your architecture,
Right.
what mood you will be able to bring it. But when you have your sketch working, you could bring any texture or any color you want because the volume is already solved, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's a good, it's a very very fun technique to experiment a lot of different texture or material you want to bring. It's but yeah, so it's we're bringing those two techniques.
Yeah, I'm looking at your work again, and like you almost coined it to a T. Like a lot of the images that you've already created, whether it was for Strike Vector or your personal work, has that exact technique, and it just works brilliantly. It's such a bulletproof technique, and it's like so well explained in the class. And so then in lesson 3, you actually go into 3D world.
Yeah, yeah, because I was thinking 3D is kind of the future everybody talk about, and I think when you're a student and you start today, you're not necessarily able to start directly by painting, and I think 3D is a very good start to learn concept art, especially with some sculpting tool like 3D Coat or ZBrush. And I wanted to just introduce those very simple tools to create architecture. So when you're not very familiar with perspective and lighting and volume, I think 3D is a good way to start and try to understand those things while you can keep learning painting and drawing, keep practicing perspective. But that's already a tool you can start to play with and to experiment everything. So basically, we start from some sketch. So for example, in 3D Code, I've used one of the sketch I've made in the lesson 1. And I've just recopied it into 3D. So it's more about pushing a sketch into more detailed stuff in 3D. But yeah, it's super fun to play with. And then we move to Octane Render with which will be more the rendering tool, and it will just bring some super cool lighting because Octane just have this magic lighting.
Magic lighting.
and as again, when you're not necessarily comfortable with painting or how colors and lighting works, Octane will just do the job for you. And I think for every it's almost the case for every artist, painter artist. I find it Octane Render a super good way to improve your lighting just by observing how it's work. You can just bring your object and you can turn the lighting and you can just very quickly understand better things about lighting, about the bounce light, everything, which is very funny. I'm sure it's happening for you too. But when you compare your painting to, when you paint it and when you compare it to 3D lighting, it's very easy to see for me. It's very easy to see the difference between my painting and the render from Octane.
Yeah.
And so you can really see the difference and what can be improved into your painting and lighting skill. I think I've learned a lot by using Octane Render to improve my lighting. And for example, when I was doing this black and white process, I was putting maybe a lot of dark into my shadow. And using Octane Render just show me no, it's not necessarily need that much contrast.
Right.
And if you're more looking to impressionist rendering, it's closer to the reality. And Octane Render just show you some good lighting, good shadow, closer to the reality. And yeah, I think it's a great tool to create beautiful picture, but also to learn the basic of lighting and color and material, how it's working. You just have to play with it and you can very quickly understand.
Yeah, because in Octane, you have a few options. You can either use the built-in daytime system, where like you literally just pick a place in the world and the time of a day, and it will just actually make it look that way. We'll calculate the light based on the location and what you would be
Yeah,
expecting from that location.
and the funny thing is when the light, I mean the sunlight is getting close to a sunset or a morning, it just gets orange like the reality, and I
Yeah.
think it just does the job for you, and you just notice things you couldn't be aware before trying those real time engine.
Yeah, it's very good. And like if you want to go more wild and more in depth into 3D, you can actually start using HDRI maps and then set up, like you can also set up scenes in like 3D packages and then export them directly to Octane for render. Like there's so many things you can do, but like the standalone, I would say the standalone version of it is really great. And I really like the process you go, like the way you go over it and how you're actually using it. It's pretty solid. And so the final lesson is you're putting everything together, right?
Yeah, so because in lesson 3 we'll have create a scene in 3D and then bring it to Octane Render to make a beautiful rendering. Then, so in lesson 4, you just have to select a few of your render, and because in Octane Render you can just make like 10 to 20 render super easily and fast. So you can really choose the one you want to play with and finish it, and then you just finish it into Photoshop, adding some atmosphere or small detail, improving some shape. And it's only because sometimes you just see your screen and you're maybe thinking, maybe it should be fine just by bringing some mood and atmosphere, but just by opening it in Photoshop, you just think, maybe I could improve this and that, and because you have much more freedom, by selecting an area, just put it in a different place or rescaling things. But since the lighting and everything is kind of working, you can use it to create more elements. But yeah, it's usually the fastest moment. But that's why I wanted to introduce the photo bashing in lesson 2. It's because you just use that in the last lesson. It's much easier because you have a 3D base which have solved almost of the problem.
Yeah, it makes it super easy. I started using 3D for the first time back in 2011, and there's always like a diminishing return. It's like, how much effort you're gonna put into 3D if you just are a concept artist, But I think your class, like the technique you have, and there's like many different techniques. Each of us have different approaches to things, but yours specifically is very sort of streamlined, easy to pick up and actually run with it. It's one of the strongest parts, because like I really like going into like super details with 3D, and sometimes like bash my head against the wall when it comes to like solving technical problems with how am I supposed to do that specifically in 3ds Max. This is just like this is so annoying. And then like I watch your class, it's like, oh my god, like I could just make it so easy. But it is what it is.
3D code is very easy to you can do almost everything you want to do. If it's a small piece like just one building or two, you have so many detail quality with the geometry, so you can really create any volume you want super fastly and detail it very with a lot of detail, because you can use the alpha brush and all those options, almost like it's like ZBrush, but it's very fast made. When you use those things, it's really made to be fast and have some high quality detail instantly.
Yeah. Who else is using the same tool sets for concept art? Just different techniques, but same tool sets. Eitan Zana.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's literally the same techniques.
He's the guy who told me to go into 3D. Like, Paul, just go into 3D. you need to. It took me a year to make it happen, but I finally did it.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah, yeah.
for everyone who's trying to use 3D code for the first time, it literally feels like Photoshop but 3D. Like it
Mm,
literally feels that way. If you already worked with Photoshop, like it's almost well, not the same, but it's obviously a 3D package, right? So
mm,
there's major differences when it comes to the learning processes. Uh, but you know when you watch how to get into 3D code, it's like, yeah, you have layers, you have brushes, you know, like there's so many things that are recognizable. And the software itself is very easy to pick up. Like it has a lot of tools to use, a lot of different, you know, tabs to click and everything. Like that's one of the things that is always overwhelming when it comes to learning new 3D package. But once you narrow down to specifics, it's so easy. It just becomes easy. Oh, I can ignore pretty much half of the UI because that's not what I'm gonna be using it for. And once you understand where the tools are, it's like, okay, it's not
mm.
that hard at all. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Cool, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
it's
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
no. Just wanted to say like it's funny because in 3D code, I think I just use like 5 or 6 different tools and that's it. Because you don't need like they offer like 20 or 30 different tools, but I just use like 10% of all of it because you can just do everything very with very few tools, and that's what I liked with 3D code.
Yeah, yeah. It's great. Like if you're looking into like, hey, I'm just doing 2D images, I'm just doing illustrations and paintings and like 2D concept art without any use of 3D, this is probably, I would argue, the easiest route. Like the easiest in terms of like user friendliness because it's literally very straightforward to learn and use, and the results are stunning. You know, you have two world class. I know two world class artists, yourself and Eitan, that use it for personal and professional work, working on the biggest projects. So yeah, it just, I if that's not a testament to it, then I don't know what is. Cool. All right, man. Like we went over pretty much what you guys can expect from the class. Again, I'm gonna mention this. It's packed. It's a lot of material. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. There's a bunch of questions that people have had on the stream. So let's maybe go over that, and maybe we'll go over the first one, which will be easiest to ask and maybe hardest to answer. Which is, when is the next mentorship happening? Because the one you already opened is already sold out.
Oh, really? Okay. I
We
didn't.
don't have to answer it now, but we can talk it we can talk about it after. But you
Okay.
know, if you're willing to open more, then obviously that can happen. Guys, otherwise you can always sign up. There's a mentorship waiting list. You can click that, and once we're gonna be once there's more mentorships opening up, once you click that, you'll have a chance to actually be the first to know about that. It's like pretty much a mailing list. Um, so the first question was, and those are not in order. I'm just, you know, because I lost first few, but then you guys reminded me about them. Was I have a question for Paul. How important it is the impact of looking at and understanding art of former old masters. Especially France is very much in touch with art from so many centuries ago, and your art is just as alive. Would you say it is connected? One's art skill and analysis of old painters. I don't think you go
Uh,
I don't think you go over old painters, especially because it's like
I,
more of an environment we're building tool course. But yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I, s- uh, I didn't really talk about that in the course, but I'm always having a look to yeah, traditional painting because I've got a lot of influence by photography for design and architecture and shape, but photography is always very deformed in term of color and the reality of of when the photographer took it and what we see. It's very different. And the good thing with painting, especially Impressionism, is it's closer to the reality of what they were watching. And I've kind of more follow photography for design and architecture inspiration, but I'm always search for this reality that had the Impressionism. So I didn't necessarily talk about that in the course, but that's definitely something that I get inspired by. So yeah, it's definitely something to follow, and
Yeah.
there is so many traditional painting, so many amazing stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. I like to look at the old masters' work, especially when it comes to like, the use of color, Rembrandt and Caravaggio, and there's so many. I've mentioned two biggest, but there's so many great artists out there that you could learn from. It's always good to study. Hey Paul, I love your work. I usually do less epic and more contained environments. I was wondering if the homework requires us to do epic large buildings only. Do we have some freedom to draw stuff we personally do?
Oh yeah, completely. What I show is just my taste, but this is just made to for your taste. I'm not necessarily, or at least I'm not showing how to do big scale stuff. I'm more preparing to find the key of what you're more looking for. So if you're more looking to smaller scale, or at least like a very small word, you can do it as well. It's really made to give you your own interpretation of what it could be. Because when let's say you combine three ideas, let's say we say like we combine three ideas different, I'm sure I will interpret it in a different way as you, Mathieu, you will interpret it in different way, and everybody in the course could interpret it in his own way, and it's really made to develop your own idea and word.
Yeah. Next one is let's see. How much octane do we need to know for this, Paul?
Nothing. Nothing, because it's very hard when you don't know anything about Octane and you don't have any tutorial to understand it. But when you have the good basic, it's super easy. So
yeah, and you go over everything pretty much.
Yeah, but it's super fast to understand, and when you understand the how it works, it's really after just after seeing all the video, you can just do whatever you want, because there is not that much things to know about it. It's very simple software.
Yeah. So
it don't look like when you see all the box connected together, but it's always the same box connected together. So
yeah. And again, it's like coming back to the same thing, like when you open a software for the first time, it's like, oh, there's so many tabs and buttons to press, but then you learn like, hey, I actually have to only press few of them, and once you know which those are, everything becomes simple. And then over time you learn those additional ones. But yeah, you go over like if you've never used Octane ever and you want to take this class, you're not going to miss out on anything. You will literally be able to pick up everything, because Paul goes like in details in terms of how to use those software and what to press and everything. So exporting from 3D code to Octane, there's a specific way to decimate your mesh. I can't remember if you go over that in the course or not.
I do, but it's I've just do it in a very simple way. That's how I do it during all the course, just to do things very simple. And but I just show how to export it and how to decimate it, and that's it. So it's not too heavy into Octane render.
Yeah. Another one was I'll just read the course related questions for now. Being a Mac user, I can't run Octane, but I guess Blender Cycles Pro Render would work as well.
Yeah, for sure. But you can, if you really want to use Octane and you have a Mac, you might be able to bring an external NVIDIA graphic card. It's working. It's maybe more tricky than just bringing a graphic card into a Windows PC, but it's working. But
Jan
software
Urschel is actually
proposing.
doing it that way. Jan Urschel is actually doing it that way. He has like an external graphics card. I think he has like one of those 1080 Ti's or maybe the new one. And there's like there's a software. There's like a well explained process. And from the conversations I had with Jan, it's working pretty well. It's pretty stable. Like it's a little tricky to set it up. Like it takes quite a few steps, but it's all well documented how to do it. It's not like a typical Mac OS process where you click and it works. Like you actually have to set it up. And once it's set up, it's pretty stable. It works really well. And Jan is, I think he's he's either using Octane or Redshift. I can't remember.
Yeah, he's using Octane.
Yeah.
We spoke about it.
He has it set up, and so like if you cannot use it, you can actually set it up that way. If you boot camp, then obviously there's no issue. Then you can just eGPU and it will have Windows drivers and it will work pretty well. No stress. Next one is let's see. Oh, this one was already asked. It's the same question. It was already answered. It was if you need to know Octane at all or not. There was a few more questions, like less related. Maybe we can ask one. It was a question about your work on Cyberpunk 2077, whether it was a remote or location.
Yeah, it was remote. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was wondering that too. Like, did you move to Poland? What? Well, now we all know.
No.
Dude, how awesome that game's gonna be.
Yeah, it's super exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty bonkers. I saw that 45-minute. Like, how much balls you have to release like a 45-minute demo of like an alpha.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
but you worked on it. You worked on it right a long time ago.
I did I did when they were doing the first trailer. I was working with the production, the VFX company that did the trailer, Platage Image, and so I did work with them. I did maybe like one concept art image for the Cyberpunk game because I was working with CD Projekt guys like way back when, but it was like a really short project because I had like other projects going on and really low time to spare. But that's about it. I did not work on an actual game, so if I can consider one concept art for a game to be working on the game, cool. that would be a crazy stretch, but technically, yes. Technically, I did some work, so I should credit myself. But compared to what those guys did, like that's like a grain of sand in the desert, So, so that's
yeah, it's crazy.
Dude, we blast through everything. There was quite a few questions, few questions that were not related to the course itself. Sorry, guys. We have a limited time, and I want to make sure that for all of you guys who came in to learn about the course, we will answer that. I think I'll use this chance to Paul, invite you for like a podcast or something later down the road, so we can actually focus on those questions maybe and talk about those. And we'll try to figure out what's the situation with the mentorships, because the first opening is already sold out, but I'll talk to Paul, see what the schedules are like, and see if we can open up more or not. So I'll keep you guys posted. You will definitely know when that happens. So very cool, guys. Thanks for joining us today. The course, as I mentioned, is already live. You can go on learnsquared.com and find it there. And it's fucking awesome. I always stress about how awesome the courses are when we release them, but me and Andrew are basically picking and choosing like who we gonna have on the platform next. So obviously we're always excited when something comes up and we have it on the platform. So I'm super glad that this is out already, and it's been long in works, and I'm super excited that we passed the final stretch, and now it's ready to go. It's fucking awesome. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for being here, and yeah.
Thank you, guys, and it was cool, and hope you will have a lot of fun with the course.
Yep. And any questions you might have, guys, if you missed anything from this release Twitch stream, we're actually gonna post this video later on, probably later today or maybe tomorrow on YouTube. So if you're just joining, like, oh, I missed everything, like, don't worry, it's gonna be on our YouTube channel shortly after. We'll put it up there so you can catch up on everything we've talked about here. And yeah, otherwise, if you run into any questions, as always, you can always reach out to us. We try to be as responsive as possible and respond as quick as possible. And yeah, we will keep you posted. And yeah, enjoy the new course. I'm super happy. And guys, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or night, wherever you are in the world, because this is worldwide. We live in this worldwide world. And yeah, till the next time. Take care, guys. Thanks, Paul, again. Thanks for being here.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye. All right, where is the button to wrap it up?
Wow. Are we still... we are not live anymore? Hello?